I'd like to share my high school pole vaulting story to all of you so you can get a better understanding of what the sport is all about. The year is 2001. I remember running around the track and seeing the pole vault guys laying on the mat, sunbathing, as I was trying to keep pace with the other guys. About the second time around the track, I looked over and I saw one of the vaulters running down the runway. He was moving pretty quick, and he planted the pole and shot up. It must have been about 12 feet in the air. I remember just looking and staring at that and almost stopping in mid of my tracks and getting hit by the guy behind me, and immediately went over to the coach and told him, hey, I want to do that. So, sure enough, he put me in pole vaulting, and most of the first year was spent stick vaulting. And as you guessed, it's exactly like it sounds. The pole doesn't bend, you just kind of muscle yourself over the bar, so you use the pole kind of like a stick. That year's challenges were to get comfortable holding the pole, confident enough to plant it in the box and get over starting height, which was 8 feet. Much to my disappointment, none of that actually happened. Every time I ran up to the pit, most of the time I shrugged and kind of didn't go all the way through or was too scared. So I never actually cleared a height my freshman year. While still hungry to compete the following year, I redoubled my efforts to clear starting height so that I was able to place at actual meets. The beginning of the season started off the same as last year, and I was quickly getting discouraged. I wasn't able to get through these heights. I kept questioning what was I doing wrong. Well, I started working out and exercising twice as hard in order to be the best shape as possible for when the time came for me to put the form in. Pull-ups, push-ups, core workouts became an everyday rigorous activity. By the end of the season, I not only reached the goal of opening height, but also a whole extra foot. Of course, I forgot to mention the part where I broke the pole during my first vault at conference later that year and suffered a pretty bad concussion. I was out the rest of the season, still working on trying to get cleared for the future. At that time, you would take concussion tests before the season, and if you had a concussion, then you would have to take the test again in order to pass it so that you could be cleared. When I finally did get cleared, the coach approached me at the end of the season, and realizing that I'm pretty much the only vaulter he has left, most of the guys quit after freshman year, he wanted to send me to a summer training camp. My parents loaded up the pole vault pole onto the car, and we headed to a 3-day camp. While there, we were drilled all day, and even practiced a little bit of underwater vaulting, which was really cool. I finished the camp by setting my own new personal record of 11 feet. Excited from camp and with new drills to help, I started training and conditioning early in the summer leading up to my junior year. Occasionally I would meet up with a coach to continue some underwater vaulting, but there were times I missed my alarm in the morning. My junior year starts off to a strong start with me taking first place in just about all the meets. Since there was no actual coach for pole vaulting, the head coach put me in charge of the newbies to help them along. That year, the new height I wanted to reach was 12 feet. I had gotten very close in practice, but needed to make it happen at an actual meet. There was a new problem, though. As I started to get to new heights and larger poles, I noticed there were times I wasn't making it into the pit. Instead, I would go off into the side, maybe I wouldn't even land on the pit, and sometimes I just wouldn't get enough speed and I would chicken out at the last second. Part of it was not having enough speed, and the other part, the biggest part, was the mental aspect. I started to get nervous of the pole breaking. I started having flashbacks to that conference meet where I broke the pole and suffered that concussion. Plus the height started getting at me too, and if I wasn't making it into the pit, I was worried where I was going next. I did eventually reach my 12-foot goal, but that still did not qualify me for state because of the scratches at regionals. My goal for senior year was simple, and that was to make it to state. I started off the season strong as usual, but I could not seem to get past 13 foot 6 inches. Still very impressive compared to where I was 4 years early at not being able to clear 8 feet, but if I was going to make it to state, I needed to reach that 14-foot mark. It was around midway through the season I started having shoulder problems. I took weightlifting class my senior year as a blow-off. However, it ended blowing me off the path for the state. Spoiler, sorry. It left me pretty sore and too weak for anything track-related by the end of the day. I would make my way through conference and sectionals very easily, but the real competition was always at regionals. While there, I competed against the top individuals from Northwest Indiana. I started off fine, but as I continued to vault, I noticed my energy was starting to fade. I needed to clear 13.6, a height that I had previously been able to do in order to qualify for state. In my last attempt, I cleared the bar with every part of my body, except my hand, as I went down to the pit. While the time it takes to fall from 13 foot 6 inches is seconds, it felt like eternity. I realize now the irony in both me falling and me being short of state as I went down to the pit. I knew in my head that my track season was over that day. This story ends happily, though, because what I did know is that I would help others get over their own bars, whether it's pole vaulting or in learning. Thanks.